People will try to get into a contract only when they know each other. Every business that is involved will have their own type of risk which will matter in terms of the business. Without having the basic knowledge of how things have happened, if the insurance company just go about signing on the check, then that would lead them to a loss. Good morning and welcome to the third session on principles of insurance, and this is going to be on the fundamentals of general insurance. So in this session, we are going to see what are the different principles that are involved in terms of the general insurance. We are going to talk about the principles of utmost good faith, which means to say that firstly, in an insurance contract, the seller is the insurer and he has no knowledge about the property or to be insured. The proposer, on the other hand, is supposed to know about the property. So in this case, let us understand the factor that the insurance company does not have any knowledge about the insurance. He does not know under what circumstances, under what conditions this person is going to take the insurance. On the other hand, the person who is going to take the insurance definitely needs to know about the property. So it becomes very, very important here that the person goes and tells the truth to the insurance company for why he is taking that particular insurance. Now moving forward, the condition is reversed for an ordinary commercial contract, and for the seller, it is entirely dependent on the buyer. Why? Because this comes into picture here is that in a normal contract, if you try to understand very clearly, the contract works on a mutual consent. But here what happens is that the seller is completely dependent on the buyer. If the buyer does not give out the information to the seller on the right time, on the right place, then automatically the contract will stand void. So it is the duty of the buyer to go and tell the seller very clearly that these are the terms and conditions under which I am going to take the insurance. If it is not going to happen, then we are not going to get into the insurance factor at all. Moving forward, we are going to talk about what are the principles of general insurance. Now, what is the first principle here? Each party is required to tell the other the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So the first thing in insurance for any of the member here is that you need to understand the truth behind it. You need to tell the company what exactly needs to happen, why it is happening, and what are the factors under which the insurance needs to be taken. So you cannot go and give false document or data to the insurance company. You need to speak the truth. You need to tell them very blatantly what are the problems, what are the challenges that are involved with the business, and you need to tell them the exact picture about the nature of the property. Followed by, unlike like normal contract, an obligation is not limited to the questions asked. So here you need to understand, I might go and ask the insurance company only very few questions. I might ask them what is the premium or what is the coverage I'm going to get, which means to say that for the insurance company, if they fail to reveal all the information they have, that means the entire thing can be considered as void. The contract will become void. What I mean to say here is that for the insurance company, they need to go back and tell very, very clearly, stating that this is the insurance matter, this is what we are doing, and this is what you need to understand. So at any given point of time, whatever might be the information, all the information has to be revealed very, very clearly to the proposer, that is to the person, and told that under these conditions only you are eligible for an insurance. If the company fails to reveal information, if they fail to give out the necessary information, then the entire contract will become void. Followed by material fact. Now, what is the meaning of material fact? Material fact means that under every circumstance, the information which would influence the judgment of a prudent insurer for assessing the risk. Now, that is a very, very important factor that you need to understand. What is the material fact? What is the asset? What is the value of the property? What kind of property? What is the kind or the nature of the property where you are involved? So that is the material fact, the real life asset. That is the tangible asset that you have in your hand, that the insurer needs to be very clever enough, very sharp and shrewd enough in understanding, because only based on that judgment you will be able to assess the risk and you will be able to go forward. You need to understand what is the risk that is involved with that. Now, for example, if I am running a shipping company, or if I am running an aviation company, or if I am running an agricultural company, not all the companies are of the same nature and stature. Not all the companies will have the same kind of risk that is involved. Every business that is involved will have their own type of risk which will matter in terms of the business. So it becomes very important for the insurer to go forward, understand the nature of the business, understand what is the kind of material, what is the kind of property, why it needs to be insured, and under what circumstances it needs to be insured. So every micro detail matters a lot in terms of assessing the risk, in terms of assessing the value altogether. Now, moving forward, facts which must be disclosed. Facts which show that a risk represents a greater exposure than it would be expected from its nature, which means to say that now when we are into a business, a kind of business, it is mandatory for us to know the nature of the business. For the insurer, he might have thought about a risk factor, he might have thought about a process involved in it, but then it is up to the companies to understand the involvement of the risk. So what happens here is that apparently I might think that the nature of the business is less risky, so we can give a type of insurance, but only when I go inside and understand the complete outcome of the business, the nature of risk can be understood. Now, for example, a chemical company will have a greater risk than that of a leather company. A company which runs on oil and petroleum business, the nature of risk is much more higher than a manufacturing company. Now, why is this factors coming in is because of the nature of the business itself. So one must clearly understand what are the natural factors, what are the factors under which things are working, and based on that, that disclosure has to be given, followed by the external factors that the risk is greater than the normal condition. Why? Because there are a lot of external factors which might be even more greater than the normal factor. Suppose the nature of business that is involved is subjected to any kind of externalities. That might be about a terrorist attack, or that might be about a natural calamity coming on that, or that business itself is located in an area or in a position which is already subjected to any kind of externalities, then this is a very big risk that we are taking about. So it becomes very, very important for all of us to understand the external factors that make the risk greater than the normal situation, followed by the facts which would make the amount of loss greater than the normal expected. Why? Because most of the insurance companies might go with a figure in mind saying that yes, this much of insurance is enough. Like for example, in the aviation sector, I might have insured a plane or the related business for several crores, but then the actual insurance coverage needed might be 10 times more than that. Now, what will happen is that if the person who is insuring the business, the insurance company, does not know the value, does not know the actual risk, and he just gives out the coverage, at the end of the day, when the claims is going to be processed because of any untoward incident, the insurance company will be in loss because they have to pay even more greater amount than the expected value. So that is where the facts must be clearly designated even before we start getting into the business. That is a very, very important thing that we have to keep in our mind. Followed by history of insurance. Every company will definitely have an history of insurance, because before this, the company might have taken insurance in different places, in different positions from different companies. So the history of insurance is very much needed here in order to understand the existence of other insurance. Normally, any corporate companies will have tie-up with multiple insurance companies with multiple factors altogether. So it is mandatory for all of them to understand what is the nature and the types of insurance that are already they have tied up with. Followed by the full facts relating to the description of the subject matter of insurance. So that also matters, because we are going to give out the full facts relating to the description of the subject matter of insurance. We are going to tell them what are all the factors that are involved, why these factors matter a lot, and how these factors need to be gained in terms of development, in terms of the insurance factors altogether. So you have to give out the complete description of the business. Who are your clients? What type of business you are involved? What is the nature of operating? Where you have your branches? Is it export, import oriented? Are you limited only within the countries? Are you traveling overseas? All the nature of the business has to be explained very, very clearly before taking up the insurance. Followed by, let's talk about the facts which need not be disclosed. Starting with facts of the law, it is mandatory that most of us will definitely know the facts of the law. And simple example to give you here is that overloading of goods carrying vehicle is necessarily banned or legally banned. That's quite common. Everybody knows that you are not supposed to overload a vehicle and carry it forward. That is a simple law which is expected from every single person who is getting into the business. So even before doing this insurance, you need to know that overloading is strictly banned. Second thing, facts which lessen the risk, the existence of a good firefighting system in the building. Now, there are many times when there are prescribed standards given for companies as well as for the industry. But what do the companies and the industries or the buildings, what they tend to do here is that they tend to go for certain lower standards, or they don't even follow the minimum standards. So automatically, when they try to claim an insurance, the companies come back to them and tell them this is the minimum standard that you need to follow, that you should have followed. But if you have not followed that also, now that will not be subjected to insurance, that would be subject to ignorance altogether. So that is why we say that facts which lessen the risk. Companies should have already understood in a common sense, in a common manner, that these basic things have to be in place, and then we can go about claiming the insurance factor. Next one, facts of common knowledge. The insurer is expected to know the areas of strife and areas susceptible to rights and the process. Now, this is quite common. If I start up a company on the borders of India and Pakistan, and tomorrow I go and claim an insurance saying that my company is subjected to a bomb attack or to any kind of war or external problems, then the insurance company is definitely not going to look into me. They will say that, sir, you have already started a company in a troublesome area. Based on that itself, how can you first ever claim an insurance? So it is on a common sense that if the company is already into the troubled waters, there is no point in going for an insurance. It should be in a normal, secured zone so that you can claim the insurance. Facts which could reasonably discovered. See, normally it's quite common that people will try to understand about the records, what are the kinds of data, his previous background history. All these factors are quite normally spoken, understood in all wavelength possible. So it is mandatory that we have understood those previous factors and then we have gone about it. Next factor is that factors which the insurer's representative fail to notice. Many a times what happens here is that the companies, when they go with their surveyors to the particular area, the incident spot, the companies forget, the surveyors try to forget on what basis the surveil is done. Now, for example, if I'm running a petrol bunk altogether, there is a very, very clear notice that any kind of inflammable products is not allowed. But if suppose somebody is found smoking and because of which an incident happens, now it is very, very evident for me that because I allowed that incident to happen, now that damage has happened to me. So for a surveyor, he needs to understand under what circumstances a theft, a burglary, a fire breakout, or whatever incident that has happened. Without having the basic knowledge of how things have happened, if the insurance company just go about signing on the check, then that would lead them to a loss. So that is why it is mandatory for every single surveyor, every single officer of the company to understand the process and then go about it. Followed by the duration of duty of disclosure. We say that the duty of disclosure remains in force throughout the entire negotiation stage until the contract is finalized. Once the contract is finalized, then it is subjected only to the simple ordinary good faith, which means to say that until we both sign the contract, you can negotiate on the premium, you can negotiate on the coverage value, you can probably negotiate about every single possible thing of the insurance. But once the insurer and the proposer goes ahead and sign the document saying that we hereby agree to take up the insurance, after that everything becomes only a simple good faith contract. You cannot again go back and rechange the terms and conditions. Moving forward, what are the breaches of good faith? Now, this is very, very important. Breaches means the way how it can be taken across, how it can go against the system. So, one way is misrepresentation. The other one is non-disclosure. Now, when we talk about misrepresentation, it is quite common that it can be either innocent or it can be intentional in nature. When I say that it is innocent, that means by mistake. By an oversight, I did not see it and it happened just like that. So that means to say that through innocence, I did not actually know that that incident was about to happen. So I would call it as a misrepresentation. But there are times when I will go ahead and wantedly, deliberately do a mistake. So that is called as intentional misrepresentation. Now that is a serious fraud and that needs to be looked into. Followed by non-disclosure. Now, as I have already told you in the beginning of the session itself, it is mandatory for the person, the proposer, to go ahead and give out all the details regarding the property, regarding the asset, regarding the building, whichever the material fact, in a clear-cut, crisp description saying about what it is, what is the nature of the business involved, what are the risk factors that are involved. Suppose he goes ahead with this non-disclosure and he tries to claim the insurance in case of any untoward incident, then that would again lead to a legal battle altogether. So again, in non-disclosure, we have two patterns, either through innocence or through deliberate manner. So the nature under which the claim comes in, under what circumstances this comes in, that needs to be looked on by the insurance company. Moving forward, with this, we come to the conclusion of this session. I hope and believe that the session was interesting, informative, and useful. In the next session, we will be talking about misrepresentation, the non-disclosure pattern in general insurance. Until then, stay tuned, stay blessed, and stay enlightened forever. Thank you once again for joining me on this wonderful session.